Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday again. This year is disappearing in the blink of an eye. People here already. Gold stars for being early and on time. Good morning, Kerry and Ebony from sunny Clonelly. Yes, we have blue skies and sunshine here as well, which is good because we're having the front of the house painted. And when they started on Monday, they got very wet. They got incredibly wet. So yes, it's nice to have some sunshine. Good morning, Trudy. Good morning, Amanda. Good morning, little Miss Nemo. Who's off to ballet later? Wow. Doing it or watching it? Good morning, Damien. Good morning, Jane. Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Kat. Wow, lots of lovely people. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Karen. I am always overwhelmed at the community that we have built here together. And I say we because it is all of you guys that make it a community. And for that, I am incredibly thankful. Good morning, Candy. Miss Nemo manifestly doing it. It sounds like fun. Good morning, Janet. Good morning, Emma. Good morning, Vintage Witchcraft. Steve and Jackie, good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Sunshine. Hurrah! Spring might be here. Let's not be too brave, but it might be. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, David. I'm on the big telly, so no swearing or rude behaviour. You won't get any swearing from me ever. Not my thing. Rude behaviour, I'm not so sure of. I live with Pete. It's like living in a Carry On film my entire life. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Sam. Welcome, welcome. Losing my voice. Oh, that's not good. It's the hay fever season. Hurrah! Today's subject was prompted by someone asking me this week about how to stop bad habits, basically how to stop smoking, how to stop binge eating, how to stop not eating the whole cake. So really it's about cutting ties. So I thought that would be a good subject. Getting rid of bad habits, letting go of cycles, toxic people, that kind of thing. So that's today's subject. Good morning, Nita, who are Mrs. That's my entire life. I'm married to Sid James. I have to be careful what I say because he's listening. Jackie, it is still a bit nippy. Yes, there's still that little fresh chill in the air, but I quite like that, I must admit. Good morning, Xenia. This year can go in the bin. Yeah, do you know what? After 2.5 weeks in the pain management clinic, I'm at home. Oh, wow. Oh, well, positive energy coming your way, Xenia, but at least it means you can watch us. There is always a silver lining. Yeah, do you know what? Health-wise, 2024, it can go do one. Absolutely. I'm hoping the eclipse turned it all around. Fingers crossed. So the tech fairy is putting up things for me to remind you about. So dragon magic, book launch, workshop ritual. We're doing something a bit different this time. 22nd of June, starts at 6 p.m. Free, online, open to everyone. I'm going to do a bit of a talk about dragon magic. And then Ness and Heather and I are going to do a dragon ritual, online ritual for you. And then we're going to have a bit of a chat about how you connect with dragons. So it's like a bit of a workshop on dragon magic, but free and open to everyone. So that's 22nd of June. There's also a little bit of a secret thing going on. Shh. I'm going to be totally vague now. Connected to dragon magic, to be released hopefully in the next week. There's a little bit of an extra something. So watch this space, as they say. As always, for all of the events, we've got more online rituals with Kitchen Witch Coven as well going forward. Have a look at my website on the events page and have a look at the Kitchen Witch website on the events page. Lots and lots and lots of stuff going on behind the scenes. Lots of new plans, lots of exciting things. So watch out for stuff. Good morning. That's very technical, I know. Good morning, Sue. Sid James, the man with a face like the relief map of India. Yeah, pretty much. Kerry, can you use cord cutting for not sleeping well? I suppose you can use it for anything, really. It is about getting rid of something that you don't want or getting rid of a bad cycle. So, yeah, it's the way you word it, I guess, would work. We'll get into the details in a bit. But if anyone's got any questions about cord cutting, pop them in the comments. If you've got any experience with cord cutting, how you do it, how it worked for you, pop it in the comments and we'll have a good old chat. Good morning, Maria. Emma, I like your thingy around your neck. Thank you. It's, do you know, I made this in lockdown. This is the extent of my crochet skills. It's very simple. Sephora, the marketing department has been busy. You wouldn't believe it. I'm surprised my head hasn't exploded from the ideas and plans that have been spinning around. There's a huge amount going on. To be released as soon as we can, I promise. Right, let's get some of these up. Toxic people have the problem of mirroring people, and if they are toxic or upsetting, stressful, I end up with a migraine. Things I have to work on, not picking up on their vibes and not being drawn into them. I think we do, don't we? And part of that is, as you say, it's shadow work. It is about seeing, often it's about seeing traits in people that we perhaps know about ourselves and aren't happy with, and we pick up on that. But there are some toxic people out there. It happens. It's about knowing how to deal with it. Jane, currently reading a book on past life regression, fascinating subject by Steve Burgess. Excellent book. He reckons all the bad stuff in our life can be let go with hypnotherapy, even addictions and depression, because it all comes from layers of grot in our subconscious that's been left there from past lives. He's had amazing results. There must be something we witches can do that works in a similar way. We do shadow work. We do, absolutely. I don't think it's all necessarily in past lives. I think we do create some of this ourselves in our own current lives. But I think there is often a bit of past life in there as well. Shadow work. Now, we do teach it at the Kitchen Witch School, but it's not until the 3rd level, because I think shadow work is something that, you need to be fully supported with step by step, because it can be harsh. It can be quite difficult to deal with. It can bring up a lot of stuff. And I think you also need to be quite experienced with witchcraft to know how to deal with what comes up. But shadow work, definitely. It is about looking at stuff that you don't necessarily want, personalities, characteristics. Not necessarily about getting rid of them, actually. It is about recognizing those traits in yourself that you perhaps want to temper a little bit. I won't say get rid of, because you don't want to change your personality completely. That everything that you do and all of those memories and all of those experiences makes you who you are. It's about recognizing the triggers. It's about recognizing how you act or react to situations, and deciding if or what you want to do about it. Once you start that work, it is an ongoing, continuous process. Now, I know you're not going to believe this, but I used to be very leery and very reactive. I am a control freak. It is part of who I am. I have tempered it over the years. I also struggled to trust people with handing over things. I'm not very good at delegating, better than I used to be. But that's all been part of my shadow learning journey. I still like to be in control, but I know when to pull back now, generally. So it's not about changing who I am. It's not about getting rid of that, because I run things. So you have to be in control to a certain degree. Otherwise, stuff doesn't get done. That's no reflection on my team, obviously, because I couldn't do what I do without them. But someone has to steer the ship. So there has to be a certain amount of control in there. But it is about learning whether you like those sides of your personality. I'm not going to call them negative, because I don't think they are. I think they're all different, and there is no negative and positive. It's just about whether you want to handle them. So I think we learn a lot of them in this life as well as past life. But yeah, shadow work is what we do. Hello, what have we got? Thank you. Go to work.
That's right.
Now, I have technically got coffee today.
Yeah.
Technically. We went to Ness and I went to a very lovely shop in Wickham, Raw Eden Beauty Apothecary. And she was selling London Nootropics, which is an adaptogenic coffee. And it's lovely. Very, very nice. Yes, anyway, yeah, sidetracked completely. That is shadow work, yes, definitely. And you can do that without hypnotherapy and stuff, but it is a journey. It is a journey. Good morning from sunny Normandy. Good morning, Jalala. Yes, Zenia, I do hope the eclipse fixed things. I'm hoping it reset everything to how it should be. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sephora, not on topic, but that's, fantastic job they did on The Dragon on Damsel on Netflix. Beautiful. Have not seen it. We'll have a look. Maria, I performed one using my colour, a spell book, and used the various colours it suggested. Then the spell used Kalia's deity and had to write names on pieces of paper, folding away from myself, and then burned it. Right, to cut cords, to release, to get rid of things. If you are writing petitions, fold the paper towards you to bring positive energy in, fold the paper away from you to release the negative. So yeah, perfect. And burning's always good. And Kali is a kick butt kind of deity to deal with. Absolutely. Sam, shadow work helps us to practice the pause. That's a good way of putting it. Yes, that is one thing that I have learned, to not knee-jerk react to things, to step back and, right, okay, answer when I'm not so cross, answer when I've processed it. So yes, very good way of putting it. Jane, you're right. Not always. Some of my growth is in this life, and I've been doing shadow work by journaling. It's a very good way of doing it, working through my wounded child journey. It's very hard to let things go that have happened in this life, because I've got memory like an elephant. I haven't, but there are certain things there. I don't remember, what I did yesterday, but I do. I'm a Scorpio. I hold on to stuff. I do not forgive and forget. That's something that I'm learning to deal with. I am very, very blessed. I had a fantastic childhood. I have fabulous parents. I don't have that to deal with. My younger brother probably does, because I was horrible to him. But, therapy. But there are things that I have done, I would say, from my teens upwards, when I was responsible for my own actions, that I wished I hadn't done, or that situations that I got myself into, which I wished I hadn't done. We learn from it all, hopefully. I do believe that the universe teaches us lessons. I do believe we learn from our mistakes. I don't believe we learn from the first time round. Sometimes it takes several repetitions of that mistake for us to learn from it, but hopefully we do. We've all got a bit of baggage. I think we've all got a big, sorry, just in James, behold the hand. Yes. Good morning, Heather. Time to see Pete's hand. There you go. It's famous. Glorious coffee. It's not real coffee, but it is adaptogenic, and it's got mushrooms. And I know it sounds disgusting, and all sorts of good things in it, but it's actually quite nice. Yeah, that's quite nice. It's not my caramel laden latte, but it is quite nice. Karen, I'm hopeless at delegating too. Currently working on it with a communication and strength spell jar. Do you know, I do struggle with delegating, but my issue is from the trust side of things and from the control side of things. I always was, I'll do it myself because I know it'll be done properly. That's how my mind worked. It took me a long, long time to trust people enough to know that things were going to be done to my standard. It sounds awful, doesn't it? But I'm being honest here. And I have to say, with the team, Ness and Heather are equally as skilled and knowledgeable as me, and I quite willingly hand over stuff now because I know that they're going to do a sterling job. And when it comes to some areas, they're better than I am. Crochet is one of the areas where they're both much better than I am. But I think everyone has different skills. But I think for me, it was the whole control delegation thing is definitely a trust kind of thing. And that takes time. That takes time to build, and it takes time to let go of that control. But I can only do it when there's trust involved. Everyone has their own peculiarities. Everyone has their own idiosyncrasies, and it is different for each person. And it is all a journey. It's all part of a journey. Xenia, same here with having to have control. And then I exhaust myself. Yep, been there, done that, got several t-shirts. I'm learning to practice the not my circus, not my monkeys, step back. I think that's something social media has perhaps brought to the forefront. When social media first started, it was so tempting to jump on every single comment and every single moan and gripe and fight. But what I learned fairly early on was there are a lot of keyboard warriors who are very brave behind the keyboard, who probably wouldn't do it in the real world, but who are only on transmit. So it wouldn't matter how many responses you put, how beautifully worded your responses were, how factually correct your responses were, they're not going to listen. So that was something that I learned quite early on, was to keep scrolling. Because you've got to pick your battles, I think, haven't you? And it's not worth getting stressed because you know that you're never going to get the result that you want or need. Yeah, all a learning curve. Karen, the main thing with cutting and releasing is remembering to fill that void with something positive. Wise words, very wise words. So if you are releasing, if you are letting go of something, if you are removing something, there's nothing that negative energy loves more than a void. So you release all that stuff, you throw it all out, and then there's a big old gap, and negative energy will fill it unless you replace it with something positive. So it is important to remember that. Very important. Good reminder there. So if we think about cutting the cords, and we are joined, if you think about it, everything that we do kind of ends up with us being connected to it. So if you are in a bad cycle where you keep repeating stuff, if you are a smoker or a drinker or a cake eater, and you don't want to be those things anymore, I think the first step is you need to decide whether you want to give it up. It's the whole diet thing. If you want to go on a diet, you have to want it. It's any kind of spell working, really. Your will and your intent is the strongest, most important part of that. So if you want to give up smoking, you have to really want to do it. That's the base point of it. If you want to get rid of a bad cycle, if you want to remove a toxic person from your life. You've really got to want to do that. You can't go into it half-hearted, otherwise it's not going to happen. So that's got to be the base of it, but that's kind of the base of any spell work, really. But cord cutting can be so simple to do. You can do the whole thing with visualization. If you put yourself into a meditative state, see what it is or who it is that you want to release from, and visualize a cord coming from you. Quite often I find it's from your solar plexus, from the center of you, but it can be, it could be from your nose. You'll see a cord stretching to the person or the situation or the cycle or a packet of cigarettes or whatever it is. Cut the cord. Burn it, cut it, see it disappearing. That's visualization, cord cutting. Would then follow that up by, as Karen says, replace it with something positive. If it is something like smoking, you could replace it with going for walks or fresh air. If it is dieting, you could see it with yourself as you would want to be. Personal choices, because I'm a curvy girl. Quite happy with being a curvy girl. If it's a person, see that cord ending, cutting, breaking, snapping, and that person disappearing off. And maybe see something, love, happiness, sunshine, filling that place. That's visualization, very straightforward. If you like working with candle magic, me. You can take 2 candles, one to represent you, one to represent the bad cycle, the bad habit, the person, and literally with sewing thread, tie one end to one candle, tie the other end to the other candle, light the candles, and as they burn down, it should break the cord. As soon as that cord breaks, then you've broken that cycle. You have cut that cord, you have released and let it go. I mean, there's variations on it. You can literally take a piece of cord, tie a photograph of yourself at one end, photograph of the person or the habit at the other end, and cut the cord with a pair of scissors. Cutting the cord does what it says on the tin. It sounds very complicated, and I do get lots of questions about it, but it is really, really straightforward. You literally cut the cord. You break that connection between yourself, the other person, yourself, the bad cycle. I mean, obviously, the spell working is simple. The following up afterwards does take a little bit of effort, particularly if it is something like smoking, because that's all addictive stuff. You've got to do the work to back it up, but that's again the same with any type of spell working. Emma, the last time I did a cord cutting, I used 2 mobile phones to get the images of myself and the other person. Clever. Tied a cord around both and used a candle to cut it. Definitely worked. Very clever. Same process. You've got to get the image of the person or the thing, yourself, something to join you, and then cut that, break that connection. That's a brilliant idea. Heather, very glad mobile phones with cameras weren't around when I was younger. Oh no, I think back to my young farmer years. Oh, I'm so glad there were no cameras. Well, there were cameras, there's a few photos, but yeah, very glad phone cameras and social media weren't around then. Good morning, Melody. Special mushrooms. No, these are not special flying mushrooms. They are healthy mushrooms. And herbs and stuff. Jane, sometimes we make the same mistakes again because we enjoyed them. Take several attempts before we see what's good and what's not so good for us. It's all a learning process, isn't it? And my witchcraft pathway, over 30 years and counting now, has taught me an awful lot of things. And it has changed who I am as a person for the better, because I've learned as I've gone along. And I have, as witches, we have this toolkit to help us through all of these different situations, to help us through all of this emotional stuff, to help us through all of this, headology stuff. And we are lucky that we have that toolkit. But it is perhaps learning wisdom as we age. It's funny, I was never a patient person, definitely more patient now. I think having children did that, but I'm still impatient, but I'm better than I used to be. But I'm also less patient with people, with situations, with, horrible stuff. Do you know what? As Xenia says, not my circus. But perhaps that also comes with experience, and I use that instead of age. I just want to confirm it's not magic mushroom coffee, it's adaptogenic coffee. London Nootropics, very, very nice coffee. Little Miss Nemo, delegation only works when you're surrounded by competent people. Absolutely. Otherwise, it's quicker to do things oneself. I'm all for delegation, but only if it's possible. Yes, that is something that, yes, I've learned that along the way. You have to know that those people can do the job. And I think trust comes in to that big time. Sephora, that's what makes a good PAEA, being type A. Yeah, I've been a personal assistant to a CEO for 31 years. Organization is my skill, my role. I've organized his life for the last 31 years, so maybe that comes into it as well. I recognize his crochet. My mum makes amazing crochet stuff, always has done. Back to the late 60s when I was very small, I had crochet dresses with matching crochet knickers. And yes, Heather and Ness both crochet brilliantly. Mine's very basic. I taught myself in lockdown just to give myself something to do, really. I can do long chains of things, same as my knitting. I can knit a very long scarf. It's all wibbly wobbly and I can't cast off, but thank you. Kerry, if you want to get rid of two totally different things, for example, unhealthy eating and negative attitude, would you do two separate rituals? Yes, I would, because I think you need that focus. You need that energy and that focus and that will and intent on one thing at a time. I would treat them separately, yes, and then your focus is honed. But again, and also different things to back it up with. You have to do a lot of follow up with it as well. But yes, I would do them separately. Karen, I like to use string and a candle for cutting spells because it feels like a final snap. Yes, when the cord finally burns through, not on top of the altar cloth. So yeah, had a few fires myself. Anything that involves candles, flames, do think about safety, health and safety first. But there's that ping, isn't there, when it goes. And if you are visualizing, if you can visualize that snap, as I think the builders have arrived. That's Eric barking his head off. It's that snap. If you can hear that sound, visualize that sound, if you're just using visualization, that really helps. It's your senses, isn't it? It's using all of your senses, which we've talked about before. Janet, ever since the eclipse, I felt tired and I found myself thinking of things that happened more than 30 years ago. My brain is permanently in 1985. My brain, my fashion sense, still there. The eclipse is interesting, and it was quite a big, powerful old shift this time, and it did bring a lot of changes, but I think it resets. So maybe have a think about why it's taking you back to that time. Is there something there you need to resolve? Maybe. Is there something there that you learned that you need to revive? Most things are for a reason. And I do think the eclipse does reset things to how they should be. So have to think about it. David, when a young witch the first time did shadow work, the Kalach told me she's very good for shadow work. That was good, but all a lie. Yeah, he sees through it all. Then told me that the mind likes to deceive itself to protect itself. Absolutely. So taught me how to look through glamours. I've never forgotten her words. Shadow work is a slow and careful process. It is, absolutely. And it is also ongoing. Once you open that can of worms, you've got to carry on. It keeps going, keeps happening. It is a process, absolutely. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It is. I think we do twist stuff in our heads quite a lot of the time. Kerry, I have a t-shirt on it that just says at the bottom, "My monkeys fly." And so they should. Dawny, I used cords around my wrists and feet and used coprolite to absorb the negative energy I was cutting me from. It did work, but as it was an ancestor, not completely, but not able to get close now. That's quite an interesting thing. I have worked with that as well, where you physically bind yourself and then release the bindings. It's all representative, isn't it? It is all representative of releasing, of letting go. Let's get carried on. When calling ancestors, he's part of it, so very hard to cut the cord. Instead, I healed the cord and the energies between us. He murdered boys to offer for dark magic. None of that. No, we don't want any of that. Let's not be having any of that. It's interesting you use the word healing, though, and I think that's quite important too. With any of this separation, with any of this releasing, a bit of self-healing always helps. Jane, you only get trolled on social media if you respond. Yeah. Otherwise, how do they know if you've even bothered to read their troll? Yeah, there's a Zen gem for this. If you want to avoid an argument, be somewhere else. I learned that a long time ago. Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. Charlie, such an important reminder to fill the gap after cord cutting, after any releasing, if you are removing stuff, you leave a void. So make sure you fill that void with something positive. I think that also goes in the physical, using giving up smoking as an example. Not that I've ever smoked, but the principle of it. It's something that you do. It's something that takes up your time. So if you're going out for, I'm just going out for a fag, what you need to replace that with something positive. Possibly not eating cake instead, but something that will fill that void. Otherwise, that will always be there to tempt you. And that's the same principle. You are getting rid of negative energy, so you need to fill it with something positive. Good morning, Maharet. Charlie, I think with cord cutting, particularly with a person, the love and positive will remain. It allows you to love from a far less entanglement. I think we put ourselves often in situations that might start out okay. But, life changes, things change. I would say people change, but other influences come in. I'm definitely not the same person I was 30 years ago, 20, 10, probably even 5 years ago. And it's whether you grow together or whether you start growing apart. It's how you deal with that. I think cord cutting is quite good because there's no hurt involved. There's no malice involved. If you've got someone that is physically, mentally abusive and you want to remove yourself from them, you might want something a bit stronger. You might want to think about a binding, which again doesn't cause any malice, but it stops that person from hurting you. Taking that a step further, if you really want to go for it, then obviously banishing. But that comes with a little bit of not love and light. But sometimes you have to make a decision about whether this needs doing for your own safety, for your own sanity. So cutting the cord leaves that positive energy in place. You don't harm the person, you don't harm yourself. There's that kind of balance there, I think. I replaced the void with joy and a sigh of relief. Do you know, relief is a good word. It is a good word. If you have been in a situation where there's a negative person or a negative cycle, once you have cut that cord, there is a sense of relief, and that's good. That's good. That means you've made the right decision. Damien, I've used a willpower sigil, which I would then write on my hand as a visual reminder that I have the willpower to give up a bad habit. Willpower is an important thing, isn't it? You have to have that will and that intent to make it happen. That's a very good idea. Dorney, he is a great-great-grandfather. I had the remnants of the lower energies. He never harmed me, so I decided to heal and accept instead. I've now healed the whole female line down from now. I think ancestors is a whole other kettle of fish. There are ways and means when you're dealing with the spirit world to make those cuts, to remove those lines. That's a whole different bag of stuff to deal with. But cutting cords is I think cutting cords is good for your own sanity, your own peace of mind. And sometimes we have to do it. Charlie, think I may need to do one with my dad, which I'm struggling with. His alcoholism and our past abusive relationship can be heavy, but I want a new beginning in our relationship, accepting. Those are his demons, not yours. I think that's quite important to remember. But that's a situation that I'm not really qualified to advise on. I would suggest looking for some professional advice on that one. There are charities and societies that deal with supporting family members of those that struggle with those addictions. Definitely worth tapping up one of those and seeing what they advise. But, you know, cord cutting might work with that one, but it might not be. It might be a whole healing thing coming in with that as well. I would definitely seek some professional advice on that one, Charlie, but hang in there. Eric's singing. Xenia, I love the idea of using techie-like mobile phones for this magic. Witchcraft evolves. Witchcraft is fluid. It moves with the times, or it should move with the times, because we have so many things that we can add to our toolkit these days: computers, internet, mobile phones, and all of them can be used to work magic with. And I think if we've got those tools, go for it. Little Miss Nemo, think my father could have done with some cord cutting of his own. Drink and women, he was a musician. It doesn't go hand in hand. Pete's a musician, doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs. As far as I'm aware, he hasn't got any other women. I don't think he could afford them. But as he aged, he realised all this about himself. It is about experience. And I think that's also, when you're cord cutting, you are cord cutting for yourself. It's about your own experiences, your own sanity, preserving yourself. If there are people with their own issues like alcoholism, addictions of all kinds, they are their issues. You can't change those people, nor should you. That's their journeys to deal with. The cord cutting really is for yourself. That's not to say that you can't offer help to these other people, obviously. Karen, thankful for social media, because without it, we would not have met such wonderful people as you. Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't be sitting here doing this if we didn't have all of the tech stuff. Always thankful for it. David, the mind likes habits as it's safe, security, safe and familiar. Yes, we get caught into patterns, don't we, in cycles, because they're familiar, they're comfortable, they're not necessarily healthy. Yeah, even when they're bad for us. Regardless, the habit is reassuring for the subconscious, even after a length of time. That's why people relapse. Yeah. The thing to do is accept it and not beat yourself up about falling off the wagon. Absolutely. particularly in the case of addictions, there's a reason they are called addictions, because they're hard to deal with. Pick stuff up, start again. Absolutely. Sephora, you should try Tunisian crochet, bit like knitting, but crochet, lots of fun. Yeah, not for me. Remember that patience thing I was talking about earlier? However, Ness does Tunisian crochet and it looks amazing. Thank you, Emma. I didn't, I'm very simple with things. They have to be quick and easy craft-wise, otherwise I get bored. Xenia, as for delegation, I also learned, and wish for others too, that people do things differently and it's also correct, so we can relax and see that it will be fine. Trust issues came up when we were disappointed in the past with things not being done. Even worse when we consult experts like doctors. I think it's important to remember that everyone is human and liable to make mistakes. So that happens. It does happen. Even I make mistakes. I think it's also, I'd spent an awful lot of time expecting people to do things as I thought they should do them. I spent a lot of time expecting people to react how I wanted them to react. That's not the right way of dealing with it. Everyone has a right to react as they choose to. Just because they didn't do it the way I thought they should doesn't make me right and them wrong. That took me a long time to learn. Everyone deals with things in different ways. Everyone has a right to their own opinion, their own way of doing things. It's just how you deal with it. And whether you want to deal with it. If you don't, then remove yourself. Yeah. It's tricky. Very tricky. Sam, I recently used the idea of shining a torch into the dark. Yes, you can see everything when putting a light on, but when you move the torch to look at something else, the previous stuff is still there and in the shadow again. You need to know it's there and go back to it every now and then. Very wise words. Very wise words. I'm looking through the comments. I've not gone completely silent. Jane, when there's a gap left between two ends of the cord, we need to make sure it's filled with something good, or there's a danger the universe might try to fill it with more of what we've just got rid of. Yeah, it happens. It does. It repeats itself. Absolutely. Cord cutting, healthier than a voodoo doll and pins. Now, it's interesting, isn't it? Now, the poppet has a bit of a bad rap. Hollywood in particular has made it into a voodoo doll, and that it's all bad and evil and horrible. And actually, poppets, they date back to ancient Egypt, where they used to be used for healing. The whole idea was that the pin was put in the poppet at the place on the poppet's body that needed healing. It's just been turned around so that it's, got a bit of a thing. But, you can still use it for that if you want to. Just saying. Xenia, the physiotherapist and osteopath in the pain management clinic told me to release more and not holding on to stuff. She's right. The brain is a very powerful thing. I absolutely believe that the brain will create physical pain. I think if you beat your brain up enough, then it will manifest in the physical, and we do it to ourselves. So yes, absolutely. Let it go. I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to sing. David, when visualizing cord cutting, I have a huge green, very leafy axe that pops into existence. Like an axe, that's cool. And slams heavily down, cutting the cord. It makes quite a thud. Now there's the sound again, that sound adding to the senses of it. Then flowers and new roots with buds to attract good things grow from the wound as the cord just swoops. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. I do like a good axe. Xenia makes me think of when we do nothing to fill the gap. Why does the universe always fill it with new negativity and not automatically with love, light, flowers, and unicorns? I have learned that the universe is a git. Often a git. It's a universe. I think it's lessons. It does it to teach us lessons. If we aren't listening, if we aren't paying attention, then it will do it again and again until we've learned that lesson. Emma, I must admit, trust is a big issue for me, but I'm getting there slowly. Sorry to the gents here, but it's mainly men I have trust issues with. I know not every man is mean, but my brain says otherwise. It's all a learning process. It is all a learning process. It's about earning trust, I think, for me anyway. Claire, do you think cords can regrow after cutting? Yep. I think they can if you allow them to. And that's where we get into the cycle of things. That's where we get into that repeat action. If you're not careful, the cycles will return. So it's about your will, and it's about your intent, and it's about taking action, working the spell, but also in the mundane as well. If you have cut cords with a person, don't then keep trolling their Facebook page to see what they're up to. Don't keep visiting places that you know they'll be. That's allowing those cords to regrow. The same with bad habits, bad cycles. If you are trying to cut out bad foods, put other things in place so that you don't keep going back to the cake shop. It's sensible stuff. I think we allow them to regrow. Yeah. So it's about following up the spell work with practical stuff. Thorny. Love working with poppets, set them to work. It never failed me. Poppets are fascinating to work with. Jane, just remembered that Smith and Jones sketch where Griff was poking a poppet with a pin and Mel was having convulsions. Turned out he had a big scratchy label in his shirt. That's going back a bit. Smith and Jones. Emma, the universe is a gift. It is, but it is for a reason. Generally, the universe knows better. Quite often when we work spells, quite often when we put things out there, we are putting it out there for things that we want, not necessarily what we need. The universe generally steps in and turns it round to the what we need category. And sometimes it does keep that repetition going because we haven't learned from it the first time. So although it seems like it's a git, it's actually doing the good stuff. Sam, like attracts like. Maybe an empty negative would attract new negative. That makes perfect sense. It does indeed. Yeah. Misery loves company. Yes, it does. It does. Jane, the universe is telling us if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. Writing a spell is a bit like writing a computer program. If just one T isn't crossed or one I left undotted, it won't work. I think that spell working is quite an art. The only way you will learn how it all works, the only way that you will get better at it is by doing it. But sometimes they go a bit squiffy and you have to learn from that. It is the way that you word things. It is the way that you put your intent out there. So yes, absolutely. Jalala, you've all heard the term psychosomatic, often misunderstood as something to be dismissed, but what it means is a physical response to something that started in the psyche. You are correct that the brain will manifest trauma into the body. This is very accepted within the therapeutic field. Works both ways. Manifestation can heal the body and can destroy the body. Yes, thank you, Jalala. I mentioned the negative side, didn't bring the positive in. See, my bad. I'm not fit. I wasn't feeling the negative. It's power, isn't it? I mean, obviously there's some serious stuff, diseases and illnesses that need medical attention. Never throw your tablets in the bin and just meditate, because, you know, modern medicine works, okay? But there are a lot of things that we can do to ourselves by the way that we think. But there's also a lot of positive things we can do as well. And this is where it comes into it. We're witches. We've got that magical toolkit that we can use to heal a lot of the emotional issues. Absolutely. Sephora, the eclipse energy seems to have stirred up a lot of crappy memories from childhood. Any ideas how to put them back in the box? I think you've answered your own question there. You don't want to put them back in the box. You need to resolve them. If you put them back in the box, they are going to keep leaking out again. That would be my take on it. That the eclipse resets things, and it is, to me, that you got to let them go. Don't hide them. Let them go. Cord cutting. Cord cutting. If you need some help with it, Sephora, message me, and we'll see what we can do to help and support you. Jane, you've blown my gratitude routine out of the water. Every night I go through all the things I'm grateful for. It seems I'm talking to a git. In a good way. The universe is a git, but in a good way. It provides a lot of good stuff for us as well. And the bad stuff is only because we're not listening and not learning from it. Kerry, is there a cord cutting ritual on YouTube? It is so simple. Really, really simple. We could always ask the lovely Heather to do a cord cutting on a how to. I know she's done some stuff on banishing and binding. We'll ask the lovely Kitchen Witch Heather if she'll do a little Heather's how to YouTube video on cord cutting. It doesn't need to be a whole ritual. Myself already. It doesn't need to be a whole ritual. Literally just a bit of spell working. It's really, really simple and straightforward. But we'll ask Heather to do well. Sephora, yes, you have answered your own question. Make a box, fill it with memories, and set the bloody thing alight. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. But remember, we are here, Sephora, so if there's anything we can help with, do just message us. Charlie, on social today before this, a woman spoke about cord cutting, didn't even click on it, then didn't realise today's talk was cord cutting. Universe is double unsubtle hint. Yep. If you don't listen the first time, it will keep repeating itself. Candy, I have aphantasia, cannot visualize, so everything I do has to be done in the physical. I would love if you would do a chat, the third eye and visualization, how people who can't visualize. If you can't visualize, and it doesn't need to be, when I say visualization, it doesn't need to be a whole high definition film, just getting the image, one image, like a photo shot, snap, is fine. But if you don't want to do it or can't do it as visualization, and there are exercises that can hone your skills, just do it in the physical. Get a couple of candles and tie a thread between them and cut it. Then you've got that visualization right in front of you in the physical, and that works brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly. Letting go has been the foundation of Buddhist practice for years. It's the foundation of a lot of witchcraft too, I think, isn't it? About releasing. Willing Moon, put my sad memories in my cauldron, give them healing, written on paper. By doing this, I'm telling my brain that I need to work on letting it go. Keep the lesson, leave the pain. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, Heather, we're putting it out there. We need a how-to. Jane, who's the person in the nice gilt frame over your left shoulder? That one, that's Granny Weatherwax. My daughter drew that. Granny Weatherwax from the Terry Pratchett Discworld books, but drawn by my daughter. She's my idol. I want to be Granny Weatherwax when I grow up. Dawny, I can't visualize either, but you can make pretend as if you were little and played with dolls. Telling a story, write it up first. There are lots of ways if you can't visualize. And again, visualization, people do it in all different ways. Daydreaming is visualization. Just getting the fight. You don't need to see things playing out. You don't even need to see things. Just think about things or repeating things. Actually saying out loud what you want to happen can replace visualization. Story, writing it all up first is perfect. Doing it in the physical is absolutely fine. And I quite often, I prefer to work with the physical anyway, because then you can actually see it happening in front of you. There are ways of working with it. But cutting cords is literally that. And you have scissors or flames or whatever it is to break that connection. That's what you're doing, is breaking the connection. Emma, I've meditated on my diabetes when I was first diagnosed. I was told to take my meds by Bridget and find an exercise I can do. 3 years later, I found an exercise I can do. Grateful to Bridget. I think with anything like that, it's very, very important to keep taking your medication. The mind is very powerful and it can cause issues and it can also heal. But there's no replacement for modern medicine. Absolutely. It assists modern medicine. Jane, journaling is a good way of releasing. We are literally decanting the stuff that's bothering us onto paper. Makes it easier to stop thinking about it, just knowing it's there to refer to if I need to. Now, I am a bit rubbish at journaling myself, but I know people who do, and it is another way of releasing, isn't it? Because you're taking that out of your head and putting it down on the paper. Sometimes if I can't sleep at night because I've got all stuff going through my head, I'll write it down first. Actually, I email myself because that's how I roll. And then I don't need to remember it. And my brain's a bit emptier and I can go to sleep. It's another way of letting it out, isn't it? It works. It works. David, sometimes just feeling instead of visualizing works. Yes, or just hearing the sounds. I think this is where all of your senses come into play. If you don't, and again, I have to stress, it's not about seeing a whole film strip running through your head. It can just be a very simple image or an outline of an image. Don't necessarily even need to see with your third eye. It can be feeling the result, feeling the positive energy, feeling that release, listening, saying the words out loud, hearing those words out loud. It is about bringing all your other senses into play. And there are visualization exercises that can hone your skills, but use all of your senses to make that visualization happen, whether it is with sounds, whether it is with feelings. There's different layers to it, but it's about making it work for you. Absolutely. So I will ask the lovely Heather to do a how-to video on cord cutting, and I'm sure she'll oblige. But it is straightforward. The actual magic of it is straightforward. Cutting the cord, whether you see it happening, whether you Heather's put up a link to YouTube. Thank you. I'm guessing you haven't done it already. I'm guessing you've already done one before. So thank you for that. Check the link to YouTube. It can be straightforward visualization. It can just be literally physically cutting a piece of string. What happens is how you associate either end of that string. But you do have to follow it up with practical stuff. It is about your will and intent. And if you want it to happen, then you'll follow it through. If that will and intent isn't there properly, then it's not going to happen. Don't be putting, look at this, do not be putting little symbols with halos, because we know. But Heather has put up a YouTube link, so do have a look. Xenia, same. Sometimes I say what I want it to myself in my head and it works, even though I haven't visualized myself in that situation. Just say it and trust that it will happen. Words have power. We use them in spells because they have power. We use them to call upon deity. We use them to call in the elements because words have power. So if visualization isn't your thing, use your words because they are just as powerful. But there you go. It's very straightforward to do. It does require your will and your intent, and it does require a bit of following through in the physical. But give yourselves a break. Release that stuff. You'll feel better for it. You'll feel better for it. Jane, we don't need to make a movie every time we want to see something happen. No time. Just do it. There you go. The final word for today. Just do it. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I will see you all again here next week. As I say, keep an eye out for all of the kitchen witchy stuff that's coming up. You won't be able to avoid it. We'll put it all over social media. And otherwise, I will see you again next week. Take care, everyone.